Welcome back, everybody, to Santa Fe Fashion Week, Fashion Behind the Curtain podcast. I'm really excited to have Loni on the line. She's in Miami. Loni, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. What's up, podcast? So, my name is Loni. I am a professional model, but I also work as a brand strategist for up and coming fashion companies. And that can range from a clothing company or a fashion production company. I'm just really good at using my eye and my experience to know how to present best to present your business and package it in a really nice way.
That's awesome. I think it's really timely, especially with, I'm kind of keeping my fingers crossed that TikTok doesn't go away. So, can you tell us your background and then how, with your social media background, how you chose fashion?
Absolutely. So, actually, my background is in acting. I studied visual performing arts for most of my childhood, and I pursued it professionally and everything. And while I was in college, actually studying theater, I took a costume design class and fell in love with it. I fell in love with it. I was so surprised, so
Mhm.
surprised. And my teacher at the time told me, she's like, "Hey, listen, I know that your major is acting, but I am telling you, as someone who has taught this course for very many years, that you have a unique eye and approach to design, and you have a future in fashion should you want it." And so that was many years ago. And I kind of took what she said and filed it in a storage cabinet in my brain
Mhm.
because at the time I wanted to be on stage, right? And so I started to notice that acting and just working in that type of industry is very, very difficult. And modeling's no different, but I would get more approaches and more opportunities to model because of my height and my build than I would for acting. So I thought, well, modeling, I'm still on stage and I'm still
Mm.
performing in a way.
Right,
So
definitely, definitely.
yeah, and so that started to really, really pick up. So I didn't realize that I could like make a career out of it. I didn't realize that I could travel
Yeah.
with it, and I didn't realize that I would get access to like free clothes and accessories. So it became so fun that I did it for like 5, 6 years in a row. Then eventually I went back to school to figure out, okay, what am I gonna do career wise, because I'm not gonna look this way forever.
Mhm.
So I needed something to fall back on, and I realized how much I love social media already. So I was like, let me see if I can pursue something. So I ended up getting a certification in social media, but my degree is in marketing and communications.
No, that's very interesting. So you'd be able to tie both passions together: social media, marketing, being in front of the
Mhm.
camera. And so, can you tell us a little bit, like, what the process is of finding designers to work with, and then what process you do to walk the designers through your process of marketing and strategizing?
Absolutely. So usually what happens is I would meet these designers either at their graduation for whatever school they're at
Hmm.
cuz you spend so much time in school learning how to perfect your craft, but you don't realize that at the end of the day it's a business. So if you can't sell, right? It doesn't matter really how creative you are, right? Make money off of it. If not, you'll end up working under someone else or for someone else. So I was learned through networking and being at events. So when I would go to these graduation events, either as a model in their shows or as an audience member, I would approach the teacher or whoever it was that coached them to their graduation process and say, hey, can I work something out with you for maybe like the first 6 months when they finish your school program, that I can maybe mentor them and help them build up their social media presence. And so that's kind of how I started. And so usually those students, once they graduate, they'll stay with me in the long term and become clients, and sometimes they move on. But I asked them, if you felt that the foundation that I gave you was good, would you leave me a review or recommend me to someone you know? And then that's how I've been able to continue to function.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Do these podcasts, and I really like to do these fashion films. I've often talked in the past about, like, I don't know if you're familiar with Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, but I think like fashion, culture, but also storytelling, and I think that's where a lot of people fall short when it comes to fashion design. Is a lot of them seem to be like introverts, and they're like, "Oh, I really make great clothing," but there's no story to go behind that fashion. Do you find that to be true, and how do you handle that?
I do find that to be so true. We live in a world where people are consumed with what's going on in other people's lives. So
Mhm.
if you can find a way to world build right? To world build the way Disney does, or world build the way the way
Mhm.
different franchises have, like The Walking Dead and things like that. It will help you so much more because then not only do people look forward to what you have for sale, but the storytelling element behind what it is that you've got going on. Yeah.
That's cool. So do you see, let's see how I want to say this, but, is it, do your brands, are they more like lifestyle brands? So are you marketing the lifestyle behind the brand, or how, again, how are you kind of going about that part of the storytelling process?
I try to find the lifestyle behind the brand because it's easier for a person to talk about what they're passionate about, and then who are you making clothes for and why. So once
Mhm.
you're able to figure out the why you're so desperate to make clothes for this type of person, it's a little bit easier to come up with the storyline for your social media. Something that I try to encourage designers to do is, if you're going by collection, try to create an illustration around
Mhm.
this season we're launching this because, and then create a story around that, and then debut it, and then move on to the next chapter of the story, because then it makes people want to follow you and stay faithful to you and to your brand all the way through.
That's cool. I started my own brand. It's called, Fashion Show Junkie, and it's, I'm wearing one of the hoodies right now, but, it was really kinda like, I thought about a long time ago, like, people that are really into fashion shows. So for photographers, whatnot, so doing that, but it's interesting because I kinda do these deep dives and looking at people that do these drops on YouTube, and it's interesting to see that. So are your designers, are they doing these drops? Are they creating, like, a whole collection and doing a one-time drop, or are they selling directly through boutiques? What's their business model as far as the way they're selling their product?
So I am based in Miami. And so a lot of the local designers here are limited in the sense that we have a very specific weather year
Mhm.
round. So it's hard for designers not to end up making or creating and selling the same thing as the next one, right? Because swimwear is really big here, resort wear is really big here. Everybody wants to be able to do couture, but the couture market isn't very strong here unless it's for like a wedding or like sweet 16s or 15 celebrations, right? And that is very, very competitive. So, to more properly answer your question, uh, lifestyle brands
Mhm.
mostly, but they usually end up doing what makes them more money, which ends up being resort.
Okay. So with that said, are they wholesale or retail? Are they direct to consumers? What kind of clients do you see that you're working with mostly?
Direct to consumer. Usually they have an online store, right, with a Shopify or one of those channels, or Etsy
Mhm.
even. And then they try to do pop-ups are really popular here. So they can have a space in a boutique or a store for maybe a month or a few weeks, depending on how much clientele they're able to have. So they rent that spot. And if the
Mhm.
amount of things that they sell supersedes their rent, then they stay. And then if not, then they move on to the next thing and try something different.
Cool. So what's some advice you might be able to give to, if a designer, they watch this video, they contact you, what's your process to kind of walk through, and setting expectations, I guess? Because I think that's always that issue where when it comes to marketing, they're like, oh, you're not going to get immediate results. And then you have obviously branding and marketing, and, people try to decide to spend the dollars on Facebook ads or TikTok ads, or creating spending money on creative.
You know what? A huge like tip that I give my clients and even people that I meet in passing is find other ways to add value. Because really, if you think about it, the world doesn't need more clothes.
Mhm.
Okay. But the
No, exactly.
individual wearing the clothes might need advice. They might need help with mental health. Okay. They might need affirmations, right? So find a different way to add value. Are you going to put, like nice advice on your clothing tags so that way instead of people throwing their garment tags away, it's something that they keep and stick on their refrigerator
Interesting. Okay.
so that you become memorable. So find something that is unique to your brand and personality that adds value. Are you going to also coach to up and coming designers and tell them what you learned? Are you starting a podcast? Are you
Mhm.
building a community for sustainable designers? Or Latin American designers, right? Find something so that way you add value and you build a community or like a cult following behind what it is that you do. Those are probably the two pieces of advice I would give.
No, that's cool. So going back to the whole cult following thing, and I kind of mentioned earlier. So do you see your designers? Are they doing these huge drops, or are they going from one season to another? What do you kind of see with your clientele?
they're going from one season to another. And what I've noticed that has been working is they're actually pursuing collaborations. So they'll try to find someone that's doing sneakers or shoe wear, or somebody that's doing hats. So that way, if you're making T-shirts, you partner with the hat guy and the shoe
Mhm.
person, and whenever
Yeah.
the shoe person does something, you can sell your shirts there.
Y
So yeah,
Yeah, you definitely see more of that. And then I know obviously Miami swim's really huge out there. Are
yes.
your designers utilizing fashion shows or as a way to market their collections?
They are using fashion shows. Fashion shows are actually not as popular here. It's popular during one particular season. We have something called Swim Week, so it's
Okay.
popular then. And but to be honest, the other ways that works down here is like influencer marketing, right? So finding the local person that represents some gym or some health food, and trying to get them in your clothing and
Right.
posting it on their social media page. So yeah, so kind of allowing your brand to be seen on other people and faces, so that way when people associate that person, they associate them with your brand. And
Mhm.
so since Miami is not just a tourist attraction, but a lot of influencers pop through here to visit, to go to the beach, to vacation, to travel, we use that as an opportunity as well.
No, I think you're in a great location. Yeah, it's interesting. I produce fashion week, Santa Fe Fashion Week, but I'm doing these more of these immersive events, and also I'm thinking, especially with the pandemic and stuff like that, you are seeing more of these fashion films. And it could be anything from a behind the scenes photo shoot, or some of these big fashion houses are doing like these three-dimensional shows where they could film it and there's really no audience, and reaching, a bigger audience or broader audience using social media. So I really think these fashion films and storytelling. I always tell designers when they participate, like at Santa Fe Fashion Week, I think the ones that do it really well is they build a story around it. So they'll do a photo shoot as they're getting to Santa Fe, they're telling that story, and then of course they're at the show and then talking about the show. So really using the fashion show. It doesn't have to be necessarily Santa Fe Fashion Week, but leveraging the fact that you're doing some sort of event to use that to leverage as much, um, what's the word I'm looking for? TikTok videos or whatever you can get out of that.
Yeah, you know what? I think that's so creative and incredible. And I've been thinking about how can I now position and brand myself, because the people I get to work with are really cool and I get to have really cool experiences. So should I be taking people on my journey, right? As a content creator for other brands, and content create also for myself, because who knows? That can also help put focus,
Oh,
right? On
yeah.
on these fashion shows happening, and put more people in seats, right? Influence more people to buy tickets and get out of the house and get into the fashion scene. There's something here for you. But people need to see that through different channels, and maybe I could be a channel. So it's a good conversation to have.
No, definitely. I see a lot of people on TikTok that they're stylists, or they work for some big brands, and they talk about their journeys and what's going on and the bigger picture. Um, Again, with Santa Fe Fashion, I want to do more of these immersive shows. I think. Have you been? I'm sure you've done fashion shows. You've attended fashion shows. Obviously, you model and whatnot. And I always think like the cool kids are kind of behind the house. The models are doing their thing, the photographers are doing their thing. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy going on out there. And then everybody's kind of like sitting on the other side of the curtain and just waiting for the fashion to go up and down the runway. And back in the day when New York Fashion Week was press week, you had to go to a fashion show. You had that's how the orders were taken. And now again with social media, and I think a lot of people are into these immersive events. So creating this event where you still have the back of house because obviously the models have to get changed and whatnot. But then rather than having a runway, the people would come out, they would pose in this space. I'm using an art gallery for 2025 here in Santa Fe. And so the guests could look and see, oh, the show, again, it's at ground level. I'll have a space where photographers are kind of creating the lookbooks because the models are already stylized. Maybe there's an area where they're doing a hair show. And then my shows are always show and sell rather than show and tell. And so every designer has a vendor booth, so they have an opportunity to sell directly to the consumer. So that's kind of where I see that going. And then going back to like my podcast, Fashion Behind the Curtain, is I want to do like not only Santa Fe Fashion Week, Fashion Behind the Curtain, but Fashion Behind the Curtain in other cities. So it's more of a plug and play where designers are like, oh, Steve's doing a show in Miami or New York or Dallas or whatever. It's not necessarily I'm competing with the fashion weeks in those cities, but it's an immersive event and giving the consumer something else to look at. And unless you're in our industry, you had no idea like what it takes to go from A to Z. And I think seeing the photography getting done and more of that immersive type of event.
You know what? That's really cool. Yeah, literally going behind the curtain because a lot of people don't understand what it takes. I noticed in the most recent the the relaunch of the Victoria's Secret fashion show, they did that. They did that all over their social media, kind of
Right.
letting the models give their perspective about the nostalgia and how things are different. And you got to see them getting their hair done and their makeup done, and it was really, really, really cool. And now we're getting to a place in media where uh, uh, there's this new movie that came out, Wicked, I think it's called, and one of the lead actresses, she has a nail artist, right, that does these amazing, intricate designs, and now nail art is becoming a trend again, whereas it
Yeah.
wasn't as cool or as cared about before. So yeah, so media is very powerful, and I like the idea of going behind the curtain because it allow people to respect all elements that goes into. Because before it was just about the model
Right.
and maybe the clothes, right? But now it's going to be about the photographers, the stylists, the stage managers, and all the different jobs that exist. So that's going to be really cool.
No, I think makes a lot of sense. So, how can people find you? I mean, I'll put links in our social media, but can you tell us a little bit about how people can find you? These designers that want to work with you.
Oh, please reach out to me. So my Instagram is at Elizabeth, right? Just like how it's spelled here. So I'm on Instagram and I'm on TikTok. And all you got to do is send me a DM and we can get a conversation going.
Sounds great. And then, with that said, if you have any designers that you're working with that would like to be a guest on our podcast, I'd love the referral.
Oh, you got it.
Fantastic. Well, have a wonderful day, and thanks again. Thanks everybody for tuning in to Santa Fe Fashion, Fashion Behind the Curtain. And again, if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please send us a message. Thank you so much.